police chief, and every officer accountable for the crime that's committed and come up with a way to fix it.
Frank, candid, and straight to the point. This is The Truth in the Afternoon with Dr. Ken Harris, sponsored by Concordia University on 1017 The Truth and The Truth app.
All I want are the books made correct. I think historically, Black people need to be made whole. If you're not going to pay us reparations, if you're not going to give us the money that you owe us based on what was taken from us and our families, the least you can do is get the history right.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking my call. You continue doing your work, man. I appreciate you. I listen to you every day.
Now, live from the American Family Insurance Studio in Milwaukee, here is Dr. Ken Harris.
You're listening to Truth in the Afternoon. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Harris. 833-212-1017. You know, somebody probably always says, why does he always say the phone number before he's going to go and talk about whatever he's going to talk about? And I said, that's what reminds me to open up the talk and text line. Otherwise, you know, that's when I revert back to being an old man and I'll forget. That's my excuse for forgetting. I just say I'm old. And that's that. So, how do we make Milwaukee better? I'll probably do this probably for the rest of the week, you know, maybe one whole day and then I'm done. Depends on how I feel. Depends on how I wake up tomorrow. How do we make Milwaukee better? Well, I think there are a couple things that we're going to need to do in order to make sure that Milwaukee's better. Yeah, I'm still having trouble with my throat, post-nasal drip and all that stuff. So how do we make Milwaukee better? How do we do that? Well, a couple suggestions. There are 5 things that, let me rephrase that, 4 things that will then lead to a 5th thing that will make Milwaukee better. Now, some of these, the mayor has nothing to do with, so I'm not talking to the mayor. To an extent, the Common Council and the municipal court have something to do with it, along with the circuit court in Milwaukee County and the state of Wisconsin, but I digress. How do we make Milwaukee better? Well, I'll tell you. Number 1, I'm going back to it. It's got to start with education. Either we need to change the way that the school districts are structured, or we need to, let me rephrase that. We need to change the way that MPS is structured, or we need to get rid of MPS and get a new school district, or get rid of the teachers union, or do something. Those children deserve significantly better than the garbage that they're getting. So if you don't take care of education, nothing else is going to matter. If you don't get rid of the bureaucracy and the idiocy that goes on in the Milwaukee public schools, and if it's in a charter school, get rid of the charter school, and if it's a choice school, get rid of a choice school, but we can't just get rid of choice and charter while MPS is in the toilet. It's unconscionable, it's terrible, and I think we could do better. If that means the city has to take over the school district, restructure it, and get all this garbage out the way so we can get some money down to the kids so we can get them educated, and stop treating kids like they're commodities, and stop treating kids like they're just there to serve you, you teach so that you can get paid. And we know that's a small amount of the teachers. We know that already. It's a small amount. I personally blame the school board and the teachers union. That's unfortunate, but it is what it is. You don't like me anyway, so where we going? But education leads to gainful employment. So we got to get gainful employment in the city, but you cannot do it without education. Whether you like Foxconn or not, Foxconn is not the only technology company that could come into Milwaukee, but we don't have the education level in order for a technology company to come in and hire people. So we can bring all the tech hubs we want. We can build out all the technology that we want. We can bring in VI, VR, IT, whatever you want to bring in. But in the end, if you don't have the people that can work there, it really won't matter. It's not accidental. We only build cars in certain places and certain types of parts of cars in certain places, because the educational acumen has to be there in order to handle the learning that's needed for the technology. But then if you have the education and you graduate and you get a job and you have gainful employment, you're going to need home ownership, because that's where your equity is going to lie. That's where your long-term investment is going to lie. Not to mention insurance and investments, which is the other two legs on a three-legged stool. But we'll talk about that later when we get into some real financial literacy. And so if you got the education and you graduated high school or college and you got the gainful employment and you have a home, that is what leads to middle class. That is what leads to the ability to pay for your children and have good schools and clean up your block and have a nice home, live a good life, be content, be generous, be forgiving, which then leads to generational wealth, because then you will have something to pass on to your kids, even if it's just your education and the importance of education, even if it's them going and watching you go to work every single day and work and understand that this is how you get better. Even if they watch you buy a house and move up in life and go from the small bungalow to the larger home, so they can see that you can grow and expand and build equity, which will then lead to you living a middle-class life where your kids go to good schools and have things, accoutrements and resources that they can use to get through school. But of course, you have to have a good school, which would then lead them to the fact that they have the education, they have the gainful employment, they have the home, they have the insurance, they have the investments. And those three things, along with being middle class, right, $75,000 a year or more, will lead to generational wealth. If your mayor, if your common council, if your municipal court, if your mayor, if none of them are talking about that, you need to go talk to them. If nobody is saying this is what we're going to do, we're going to have better schools. We're going to have, what does that mean? We're going to have gainful employment. What does that mean? Be specific. Ask for the plans. Ask for the details. Start with your common council. If someone can't give you a plan when they're running for office, oh, I'll have that when I get in and then I'll show you how. No, if you can't share it now, that means you really don't care about the city. Well, somebody might steal it. It's for the city, right? So what does it matter? Oh, you just want credit? Put your name on it and then give it to somebody. Education leads to gainful employment, leads to home ownership, leads to middle class, leads to generational wealth. It's that simple. We watched it with people who graduated from high school, went into the trades, and lived upper middle class lives, working at Alice Chalmers and Miller and all these places around here that have since and subsequently closed, but they've shown that it can be done. Take it one step higher to an associate's degree. Take it one step higher to go to MATC and major in a trade. Take it one step higher when you're done and go to a Concordia and get your bachelor's degree in business. Because that's what it's all about. If anybody says or does anything that doesn't lead to one of these, you can tell them I said, beat it.